Hey there, everyone. It's a cold day at the J&L Air Gauge, but it's a good day because finally our tender is here. So let's take a look at the new tender and show you around as to how we designed it and what it's going to be able to do for us. So first off, it's about 13.5 feet long, and it's patterned after a Baldwin tram locomotive that was built for I believe it was a railroad in Cuba, and that's where the basic design comes from. Of course, that's the only similarity. We have a set of sprung and equalized German 2-foot gauge trucks. We have the kind of the German slash Russian center buffer couplers on it, which I really like. And it was built here in Youngstown by Youngstown Metal Fab. And so let me show you around here. Okay, so the first thing we have is this platform, which gives us plenty of space. And of course, you know, it'll be much closer to the locomotive in service. So each corner here, it's going to have a seat, and it's going to have these tractor seats facing rear like that. So it'll have room for 2 people to sit on the tender without being in anyone's way, which is good. And then over here we have a brake wheel, because this car will have brakes and it will have a operable handbrake. And then on this side is a nice little cabinet, locking cabinet, and in here we can keep all our oil, the water treatment, any tools, anything that we need to have on the locomotive. We can keep in here instead of having to run back to the engine house when you need something. And this box here, we'll have some hooks on it, and we can keep spare shovels, the rake, the poker, any fire tools in here. And I think there's enough room that we could put another little shelf in here, some brackets, and put a cooler, so that when it's 90-some degrees out, we'll have cold drinks here. We have plenty of coal capacity, quite a big coal bunker. Probably fit it for some coal boards across the front here. And that's something we'll work on later on. And then back here in what would have been the water space, this is going to be space for the air compressor and any of the mechanical equipment we need to carry on the tender. As a matter of fact, our good friend Joe Mendel just brought up our air compressor. So we found that on Facebook Marketplace, got a real good deal on it, and the fella had it and bought it and actually never used it. Still had, I don't think he ever ran it. So we got it, and that will be slightly modified. It'll fit into the box here. We have a large air reservoir that's going to go inside. That thing, of course, has the low idle feature on it, so once it pumps up pressure, it idles down. I think I'm going to put a electric start on it, so we can just start it from, without reaching into the tender to pull the cord whenever we need to start it. And that'll supply the air for the new air brake system, which the tender will have truck-mounted brakes. The 58 will have. We're going to replace the steam cylinder. Well, actually, we're going to just change out the pistons on the cylinders and turn them back into air cylinders, so that we have air brakes on the locomotive and on the train. It'll be straight air, so everything will just, when you apply the brake, everything gets a brake, and then release, everything releases. And then, let's see here. So to make the connections between the engine and tender, we'll have the air hoses. Will be 2 air hoses, one for main reservoir, one for the train line. Will dangle down and come up for the locomotive. You can see here we have the connection in place for power. So there'll be a power circuit heading back to the tender. We'll run the rear headlight, and it'll also have a power circuit that could go back to the passenger train, so that if we have LED lights in the cars running at night, any lighting needs that we have. All of that will be powered by the 32-volt turbo generator. However, there will also be batteries in the tender, the rear end of the tender, that that can be used for running the lights on the train with the turbo generator shut off. So on a day that we're not running the locomotive, or whatever reason we want to have lights, or we're just tired of listening to the turbo whine, you can just switch right over to the battery power and run that. And I'm looking into, maybe it's like, well, is it worth it to try to put a charging circuit off the turbo generator, or just charge it off the shore power? I don't know. We'll figure that out. I guess it depends on how much we're going to run it at night, as whether or not that's necessary. Probably not. The Pyle National tender light here was donated by a fellow in Youngstown that worked in the locomotive shop at Youngstown Sheet and Tube, and he found that at the locomotive shop. So that's authentic Youngstown steel mill railroading artifact there. On these couplers, it's kind of ingenious how they work. If you pull back on this, like when you're pulling on the train, it'll squeeze the spring together. Or when you're in buff, it pushes against this, it'll squeeze the spring in that direction. So we have both springing in draft and buff. And we ran the tender up the hill with the Brookville the other day, and it was so nice. You'd push on it a little bit, and it would just so gently push on it, and then you'd slow down and it'd pull a little bit. And riding in this tender was really nice. I think the smoothest ride we've ever had on this railroad, because instead of having everything just, no springs and then just riding hard on the rails, we're actually getting some springing and some equalization, and so we have a much nicer ride. So some of the other things we still have to do, of course, we've got to do the lettering. We're going to have 58 on the rear side. We put our logo on the side of the tender. I just ordered grab irons. Be a vertical grab iron there. There'll be vertical grab irons for either side. Ordered the stirrup that goes there off of Pennsylvania Rail Car over in Mercer, so it's all standard freight car components. We are going to put a running board on the rear end, a couple of like 3/4 inch by 3 flat bar, and then bend it, and then put a wood plank across the back end. I think it'll look a little bit better, a little more complete with a running board on there. Let's see. Well, that's pretty much it. Oh, you see this? There's a piece of rail down there. Instead of using channel, which is what normally they would use, I decided to put a piece of rail in. For one, it gives a little bit more weight. Secondly, these were free, and thirdly, they provide just as much stiffening, because you have a 1-inch steel plate deck here, and then you got the 1/4 inch for everything else above it. There is no frame under this car aside from that plate, and there was a reason for doing it that way. And you can see the trucks are right up against the bottom of the plate. Well, we did it that way because 58 is pretty low to the rail for the platform, and with a traditional frame under the tender and using those trucks, there was no way I could get that deck to that 20-inch height that I needed. So instead of doing a traditional frame, we just decided to use a 1-inch plate, make up these machine these center bolt pieces. We just welded onto the bottom of the plate, and then use the rail, the 85-pound PS rail, for the stiffeners on the side, and it works great. This entire car full of coal is probably going to be in the neighborhood of 10 to 12,000 pounds. And that's a nice decent weight for it. It's enough heft that it's not gonna bounce around too much. So that's basically it. It's pretty cold today, so I'm gonna head back inside, but I just wanted to give you a first look at the tender and show you what we have going on. And even in the coldness of winter, we're still charging ahead on this project, getting ready for second weekend in June, which will be our opening weekend on the J&L Narrowgauge. So talk to you later.